This is a Film Stories original podcast.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
We made this.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Tony Black, and this is I Want to Believe Minute, where we unpick the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. And today, as part of this block, helping me to explore minute 36, running from approximately 35 minutes, with Mulder asking Father Joe a question, through to 35 minutes 59 seconds, as Mulder and Scully have a disagreement, is Dr. Bethan Jones back once again. Hi, Bethan.
Hiya.
Thanks for joining me once again for some I Want to Believe chat. And do remember, guys, you can check out Bethan's thoughts on the film generally and a little bit about her book. The truth is still out there in the previous episode. And we will be firing out some links as to where you can buy that book, which you must. It is an order from our podcast. And we'll do all that when we get to the end of this block. But do check back if you haven't already to listen to all that. So we're sort of in the middle, Bethan, aren't we, with this scene? I mean, it's this chunk is kind of like, there's not a vast amount there in a way, is there? But I think there's some interesting bits throughout these minutes as we establish a bit of a horror moment, I guess. So there are certain interactions. There's a particularly interesting Mulder and Scully conversation, which we'll be getting to as we get to the end of this minute and into the next one. But I think in this case, I think it starts really, doesn't it, with if the FBI are sort of saying, oh, well, there's nothing here, there's nothing, we need to go, and they've given up. Mulder still thinks that he still wants to know if he wants to believe Joe, I guess, doesn't he, at this stage? It's a good, I think it makes sense for Mulder.
Totally. I think it's typical Mulder behaviour, and we've seen this all throughout the show, and it's kind of interesting because he turns to Father Joe and says, tell me what you see, which to me kind of really recalls a lot of season 1 episodes in some ways, and like Conduit particularly, because Mulder kind of inherently believes in the people that everybody else disbelieves, and I kind of I got that sense, and I actually quite like Conduit, and I know some people,
I do,
yeah, some people don't, but I do.
I did a cheat sheet for season 1 for a friend recently with all the episodes, and I put Conduit on, and I posted it on like a message board we have. And Conduit was the only one that somebody said, oh, that shouldn't be on there, as like because there was like 10 or 11 season 1 episodes. And I said, really? I think that's a relatively important one as the show begins, especially for Mulder, you know?
So, and I think we'll come on to that again in like one of the future minutes. But yeah, this is what Mulder does. He believes the people that everybody else doesn't believe. So yeah, it's no surprise at all that he immediately turns to Father Joe and is like, tell me what you see. But it's interesting because he uses that exact same line, tell me what you see, in How the Ghost Stole Christmas, though in a completely different context.
When does he say that to Ed Asner?
He does, yeah. It's at the point where the door has been kind of bricked up. So Mulder's opened the door, and there's a brick wall there. And so he's seeing this brick wall, and Maurice is obviously not seeing this brick. Yeah, he's not seeing this brick wall. So Mulder says, well, tell me what you see. And Maurice is something like, I see an open doorway, you just need to walk through it, or something like that. And it's a completely different context, but it sort of made me laugh that it's exactly the same line.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, actually. It's been a couple of years. We did an audio drama recording of that episode for Christmas a couple of years ago, and I had a good stab at Dermot Reese. It was great fun.
I watch it every Christmas Eve. Like it's my yearly tradition now. So
well, you might enjoy that podcast then as after it maybe. It's just enjoy. Listen to us attempt to do the episode. But yeah, that is interesting. I mean, whether that's intentional, I don't know. Carter obviously wrote that episode, didn't he? There are certain lines, obviously, he really attaches to, doesn't he? Like, this is not happening. He loves that line. So maybe Tell Me What You See is another one. But yeah, I mean, I suppose the framing of it's interesting in the sense that you've got Scully behind him, and behind them both. And there's a couple of cuts away to her reaction shot as he's saying, things like very evocative dialogue, like eyes staring through dirty glass, which is I think a great way to describe ice, buried ice. That's really cool. But yeah, I think her reaction's quite crucial, isn't it? Because clearly she doesn't really, she can't stand Joe anyway, obviously, as we know already. But she doesn't like the idea that it's a classic case of Scully worrying that Mulder is being sucked into someone else's calculation or delusion, or which we've seen a lot in the show, haven't we, over time? Yeah,
and I think you definitely get that. Like you can see that Scully so clearly wants to step in. She's you can see she's impatient with Father Joe and with Mulder believing him, but when you consider that in the context of 9 seasons of the show, and she's seen this over and over again, Mulder sort of falling for these delusions, and I kind of feel like she wants to protect Mulder. That's the sense I get from this scene. It's like she wants to pull him back and almost shake him and be like, will you stop doing this? Stop falling for these people. Which is, really...
I just, in my head, I just saw a deleted scene where she literally does that and goes, Mulder, will you stop? Will you stop doing this? You've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people talk about Scully not believing after all of the things she's seen, but I think there's a fair point to make that Mulder believes way too much.
Yeah, they need to meet in the middle, don't they? As all great partnerships do. In real life. But yeah, you're right, I think, definitely. She's concerned again. And maybe that factors into the whole idea of them having been relatively apart, and Mulder having been quite isolated, because that's the impression we get at the start of the film, that he's been living in his little bunker for ages with his big beard, and now he's out in the world again, and he's vulnerable. I mean, he's always been quite a vulnerable character in a way, open to suggestion and exploitation in a way, because he's so open in wanting to believe. There are so many, dodgy actors, quote unquote, out there who could take advantage of that. And she's always been a protective factor, hasn't she, with her logic and her rationalism.
Yeah, and I think she's obviously moved on by the start of I Want to Believe as well, because she's a doctor working in a hospital. So she's... Mulder is almost quite entrenched. He hasn't progressed really as a character since the end of the show, but Scully has. So I feel like she's seen a bit more of the world as well. And we see that, I think, with some of the conversations about her patient. So I just feel like she's a bit more aware. She's got that protectiveness towards Mulder, but also the kind of awareness that, there are these dodgy actors, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And she's gone back into the normal world, basically, hasn't she? That's the thing. It's like, a world that for years he was almost trying to say to her, well, towards the end of the show, anyway, as you're getting towards the end of season 7, he's saying, there's more to this, and, you need to go out there and have a life, basically. And she sort of did, after all the William trauma and, everything with him becoming a fugitive, which, as we've talked about in previous minutes, the film just goes, let's not worry about that. So she's sort of had a normal life. So she's got a little bit more of that attachment to the world and can see that, even more than she always did. And I think that, and so it makes complete sense, doesn't it, that Mulder would then turn round and be an arse. When she starts to confront him on this at the end of the minute and says, "What, you're just my booking agent now?"
He's such a jerk.
He is, isn't he?
Like,
he is.
I love Mulder. Like, he's one of my favourite characters. But
yeah.
And rewatching a lot of the series now, it's like, oh my god, white dude, like, what are you doing?
The big one, obviously, has always been he never says bye on the phone. I mean, that was that was always the one that really stood out to me, even back then. It was like, why does he never say bye? Like even if it's just like, see you later, Scully, or, okay, catch you later, okay, but he never does. It's just like, yeah, okay, he's talking to Scully, right, we've got to get this guy, end. And it's like, just... I would have loved it if they'd had moments where Scully just looks at the phone and say, he's hung up on me.
Yeah.
And you ended up with a supercut. Across 9 years.
Oh, I feel like there's a fan vid there. Someone needs to pull like all of those scenes together. There
should be, shouldn't there? But no, he is a jerk, definitely here. He is like pushing back, isn't he? Because there's an element of him that knows she's right, ultimately, and he doesn't want to hear it because he wants to believe that Joe has this ability. However awful Joe is in terms of the things he's done, he wants to believe that Joe can reveal these things to him, or has this, knowledge, etc. But yeah, he's difficult, isn't it? And it begins to lead into this this conversation that we'll talk about in the next minute a bit more, I think. But just a couple of commentary notes for this. So in the scenes where you see behind, I think it's behind Scully when the reaction shots cut to her, or behind when they're having a conversation, but you see the FBI guys sort of walking away in the background or walking round, and they've got the FBI logo on the back of their, jackets or whatever, like you often would see. I always loved it where they pulled, when someone would pull the back of it. I think it's in Pusher where they pull the back of it off and it reveals DEA or whatever, and the little flap. I always wanted to cope with that little flap, But this time they've got like a strip, like a strip above the yellow FBI insignia, which is quite strange. And apparently, Carter said the reason they did that was they wanted the lighting to reflect onto that strip that would illuminate the coat more. Apparently, so it was all about a lighting choice to sort of make the FBI logo stand out a little bit more than it would have done. Which is interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, yeah, just because I think they just wanted to make sure that maybe the audience knew who they were in the background. That's my guess, just so people weren't confused. But and he talks about how they filmed this. They were filming this scene like really late at night. It was genuinely freezing cold, as we've talked about. There was genuine snow on the ground, and he said he loved the beauty of the surroundings. And we get some shots later of lights illuminating trees and such, which is really nice. So. I think it does come across on screen, that chilly sense.
Definitely.
For this scene.
Yeah, and it is stunning. Like and that's one of the things. Like with seasons 1 to 5 filming in Vancouver, there's that atmosphere, that look and feel to it that you just don't get in Fight the Future or in the later seasons when they filmed in LA. So it's really nice to have I Want to Believe back in Vancouver and having that same atmosphere of the early seasons.
Yeah, you really get that sense, don't you? So that's great in that way. So yeah, let's call that minute to a close then. We've covered everything there, I think. So we'll come back very soon, Bethan, to talk about minute 37 and get a bit more into this Mulder and Scully conversation, which should be good. Because they dig into a few open wounds, shall we say, or strange open wounds, but we'll get there. So join us everyone for the next minute in I Want to Believe Minute. Thanks for listening, as always, and remember, until next time, trust no one.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.